Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. It's Wednesday. It's what could go wrong Wednesday, and I think we're seeing exactly what could go wrong on the legacy side of things, including probably soon to be Bitcoin, ETH, and definitely altcoins. You know, Bitcoin will be down 2%, altcoins will be down 10%. So keep that in mind here, folks, because buckle up as the US dollar gains strength, has gained back all of its strength, where I admittedly was celebratory too soon. The death of King Dollar has been exaggerated. This is the DXY for those unaware, and it is a measure of the US dollar against a basket of currencies. But if you look at any currency, most of them anyway in the world, like we did earlier this week, the dollar looks poised for a breakout on all of them. There are countries that have to make a decision. Either they sell their USD assets or they to try to defend their own currency, or they buy more USD. So it is looking very, very, very bad news for risk assets, which would include cryptocurrencies, obviously. There was also some Fed minutes today saying that they're still worried over there at the Fed of upside inflation risk. And the market did not like that. So although everyone assumes the Fed is done raising, they may be done raising in the near term. They may continue raising at some point, but that has certainly helped strengthen the dollar from a fundamental perspective. And because it's at this important technical level, the daily cloud, this channel, this pattern, the 200-day, this is exactly where you'd want to see it if you were bullish. So unsurprisingly, this chart is basically the inverse of the Bitcoin chart. You see the same three highs essentially relative to the DXY lows here. And here's the S&P, and the reason this is important to just pay attention to, even though you may not trade it, because again, it's a measure of risk appetite. It's a measure of how strong are non-crypto markets doing. It's going to be very hard for crypto to do well if the legacy is in a mean reversion stance. And I don't brag a lot, but this one I got to take credit for, tracking this pattern for months, sniping the top to the penny. Okay, TA works. I don't know what to tell you. We talked about divs yesterday in the teaching tech video, and I mentioned this div, this rising wedge. That's the exact thing you're looking for on any trend reversal. So there's some daily cloud stuff at 4,400-ish for the S&P, but the 4,150 at the 200-day moving average is not out of the question. And if that is in fact the trajectory, as I'm stumbling over my words saying it, it would mean disaster for crypto, most likely. Here's the inverse of the DXY, aka Bitcoin. And if DXY breaks the daily to the upside of the cloud, I fully expect Bitcoin to break down. Now, it's been brave. It's tried to hold 29, to hold 30. It certainly leans bullish still. It's on the bullish side of a bullish pitchfork, but again, important to pay attention to this if you're on the alt side of things, because you can't magically expect alts to just do well broadly if the S&P is breaking down, the dollar's breaking up, and Bitcoin's breaking down. Okay. Additionally, if we look at ETH, never broke 2K, also has that triple top situation. And if we get a large selling candle here that breaks this diagonal support, watch out. 1800 is your first stop, 1500 is your next stop. Below that, 12, 13. I don't think we go that low in the near term. But if the market continues to expect hikes, that's going to be enough to strengthen the dollar, enough to break a bunch of other stuff. So I'm really just prepping you. I'm setting the scene for what I'm about to discuss, because none of it's going to be bullish, most likely. I haven't even looked at these charts yet, but I'm going to just assume right off the bat that they're not going to be doing well. And this is ETH zoomed in, just continues to make lower high after lower high after lower high after lower high. Generally not a bullish expectation here. So look, that's okay. Keep that in mind. I think there's going to be some great opportunities to buy the blood versus buying here, expecting things to go higher. This is Bitcoin dominance. TradingView's been messing with dominance a little bit as far as what they're including in the calculation. It's always been a struggle dating back since this was an indicator. What do you include in this? Do you include stables? Do you include everything? Everything's a bad idea because that's never going to get smaller. It's only going to get bigger. In any event, still holding about 50%, still looks bullish on whatever metric you want to look at it. Again, not a market for alts here. This is a chart that got picked up by CoinDesk last week, where I said, hey, we could be down the road ready for an alt season, and we're still in that ignore consolidation phase. If we start to make lower lows on this, which it looks like we are going to, for me, that continues to be a risk off stance against alts. This is total 3 minus Tether, minus USDC, and minus wrapped Bitcoin. And you'll see on the USD pairs of alts a lot of different variations of this on Solana, on AVAX, on DOT. So although there may be attempts in the making, we're definitely not at the buy point. The buy point of any of these patterns is, in this case, 275 to 300 billion in market cap total. You know, if we can get sub 100 billion on this specific index, let's call it, that would be very interesting for me to start buying blood or think about buying blood. So another 50% down move. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying, look, if it happens, then maybe that's also a pay attention. And of course, the stablecoin drama continues. I haven't checked the curve pool today, but there's strong suspicions that an exchange or an entity is exiting for USD through some circuitous route from Tether to USDC or thereabouts. And they're doing it on DeFi, they're doing it potentially on exchanges. I don't know all the details, we're just guessing here. But another piece of the puzzle that just says people are getting out, liquidity is leaving. Okay, there's who's buying your alts if liquidity is leaving. Before I talk about the altcoin charts here, let me mention today's video sponsor, Kraken Pro. Kraken Pro is a complete overhaul of the Kraken trading experience with a one-stop shop for advanced and professional traders. Kraken Pro enables efficient trading execution across multiple markets with a UI that allows for unique optimization tailored to your trading style. You can check out Kraken Pro with the link in the description of this video. So instead of looking at USD charts, which honestly for alts can be a trap because you can be up in USD, but if you're down in BTC, it's like the S&P. If you're not beating the S&P, but you're still making money, what are you doing, right? Why not just trade the S&P, buy and hold the S&P? So it's good that Bitcoin and many alts, like we'll say some alts, have beaten the S&P this year. Mining stocks certainly have. But from a crypto perspective, if you are not beating BTC, then what's the point? We'll start with layer ones. And I know some of you are going to get upset. You're going to say, you're just looking at these Dino coins. On Kraken, you can select your denominator. So if you want to denominate in ETH, BTC, USD, some other currency, totally can. And my expectation for all these charts is probably still down 80 to 90%, probably still neutral to bearish. Probably not too exciting across the board. We can add a oscillator to this because why not? In case we get some interesting lower low type stuff. All right, for Sol, nothing really speaks to me. We can also add the cloud here. Still very much noisy, ranging. For me, it's like, okay, do I want to sell BTC for any of this stuff, or should I just buy BTC, right? And based on how this sits, doesn't look excited here. Doesn't look like it wants to beat BTC. Ripple, man, remember all that excitement, all those relisting announcements, and here we are, straight back down into the range, kind of expected. I'm just curious what the USD pair is. 59, yeah. I kind of expected it to go back to 50 cents, 55 cents thereabouts, because that was the USD breakout price. I think it went maybe even to $1 on a few exchanges, but I don't think that's shocking considering they don't have a lot of general utility, let's say, over there. ETH-BTC, now this one's interesting because, again, it has not made a higher high. It just continues to lower high after lower high after lower high. So maybe it will get exciting once again when it makes that higher high. Not seeing that just yet. Not even seeing a div per se on this recent low. You can see we exceeded the previous low of that RSI. So it definitely doesn't look exciting on the daily pair. Almighty ETH. Let's look at ADA. Again, I mean, it seems pretty obvious to me that I would much rather hold BTC over alts, especially in a generally bearish environment. And, we can add what? We can add channels to this and just say, look, if this thing is not out of this channel, then what's the point, really? Depending on how you want to draw this. if you want to say this is a new channel or whatever, but clearly bearish, clearly, look at the DXY example, right? The DXY example, it's ready to pop out of that bad boy, start a new trend. ADA, not so much. LTC just had a halving, and you wouldn't know it against the BTC pair. Made fresh multi-month lows here, which admittedly it had looked okay maybe a few weeks ago in June. Probably on pre-halving excitement, but even if we go way back on LTC, this thing just has not been it. I don't know what else to say. I know people are true believers. They're married to a certain community for whatever reason, but yeah, it's not been pretty for most alts, especially over the past 5 to 10 years. Monero, same thing. Looked like it maybe would gather some strength. The problem with Monero is it's just not widely available. It's just not listed far and wide. So people generally have a hard time getting a hold of it, period. You could potentially argue for something like this with, cloud breakout, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. But certainly looks better than anything else I've seen today on the layer 1 side of things. Let's take a look at Link. I was getting excited about Link on the USD pair. On the BTC pair, I mean, again, it's just been down only for most of this stuff. It looks worse than Monero, probably better than the other stuff, but, we're losing cloud daylight here. We're about to be in the cloud, underneath the cloud. It does not look bullish to me in any regard. Now, another thing you could do, starting back with Solana, you could say, well, where would I want to buy this stuff? We could use fibs where you're either buying towards the bottom of the range. You don't need fibs for that, but that's an option, or you're buying 50% of the range. Do I think it's going to go to 1500 sats? Probably not. That's one thing you could do, right? If you're not satisfied with any of these charts, start to make a roadmap as far as where you think this might go. LTC maybe would be a good one because it had that range. So it's well on its way to 2200 to 2400. That's not sats, that's something else, but whatever that is. 0026, 0022. Think you get the point. I just think it's even too early to even care about a lot of these because I think they're going to go lower. Do any of these have a spot ETF coming? No. Matic, again, down only on Kraken anyway. It looks like it's ready to reach into an all-time Kraken low, and we can sort of measure on fibs. We can take the range and look down here, 1400 to 1600 sats. I just think you have to be very careful when we're breaking lows like that. Things tend to get very angry very quickly, and you reach a level of capitulation at that point. Now, again, on this div train, if you're looking for divs, then I'm on board. You don't have a div yet, but that is something to look for. You can see all of 23, we really didn't have a div on the way down, right? So that's potentially what we're setting up for again. But alternatively, right, div is where it's at if I'm looking to buy lows. So this is dangerous to buy here, in my opinion. Let's take a look at Atom. And again, yes, this is a div, I guess. Let me just change this to 30. Maybe get a less noisy viewpoint here. So we are making a lower low. This is attempting to div. It can certainly break that div. You can preempt it, but I would certainly want to be sure if I'm buying blood that looks as bad as this does on these lows. It just doesn't look exciting. Maybe you even wait for some RSI trend, depending on your RSI settings. But, again, this does not look like it wants to bounce anytime super soon. Stellar, much like Ripple, it is retracing. It looked better than Ripple, admittedly, on the USD pair, but it's still retracing there. Unsurprisingly, along with Ripple, not much to talk about other than that. Doge had a shot at potentially making it above the cloud, but it's not exactly a trade that I'm going to take. I'm not going to take a trade that does not even have a bullish cloud breakout yet. And this does not look like it's too excited where it's at. So I don't see any strength here. Ideally 100 sats is the level, and that would be at least a 50% down move from here. Take a look at Uni. Uni, again, some of these looked okay on the BTC pair, but they just could not hold those highs as the risk off rally continues here, getting deeper into DeFi. This is Aave. Again, there's just, you look at all these charts, show me one that looks halfway decent. Monero is so far the best, as far as at least holding a range. Most of these just look like they're ready to continue going lower. Algo, oof, somebody is doing something on Kraken with that volume ramp, potentially unloading. But again, if you're into buying divergences, I'd be careful based on the inflation, emission, issuance, however you want to think about that, some of these. Now, for something that's been down only for a year, I personally would probably rather wait, but I could see how some people like buying blood on stuff like this, and hey, wait for a div, right? I could argue we had some divs on the way down. It didn't quite play out, so it's no guarantee. But, again, none of these look happy. I wouldn't expect them to look happy. Some other Dino coins, EOS looks like it's ready for probably close to all-time lows. I think EOS was listed when it was listed everywhere else on Kraken. It definitely does not look bullish. I think that's a fair assessment based on where it sits. Some of these others, Dash making potentially, I don't think that's an all-time low, but it's certainly a low for Kraken. And maybe a lot of these make a div, but it's just not for me. Let's take a look at Maker. Maker holding decently well here. Retested the Kijun 034. Looks like, at this point I've missed this trade. Probably the most bullish of the entire bunch that I've looked at. Take a look at Comp. That's retraced. Again, that trade is over for the bulls. Probably tests close to all-time, not all-time, but, the low for Kraken anyway. So broadly, I just don't see anything. I don't see anything that looks halfway decent. Is there anything else that's potentially worth even talking about? I don't think so. Certainly not expecting any of these. I mean, just look at those ticker percentages. It is just red across the board. PaxG, which is the gold I talked about the other day. BNT up 6%. All of these just very, very angry today. And arguably only going to get angrier with how things look on the legacy side, how things look with rates and yield. So, I call them as I see them. They're not all going to be bullish, and today certainly wasn't one of those sessions. That's all for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.